Hi, friends. Today I want to talk a little bit about my experience with chronic illness. If you've watched some of my other videos, you know I'm a highly sensitive person or someone with sensory processing sensitivity, which is a scientific term for it. And I like that better because it's more descriptive. And the thing with that, I believe, is that it's very tiring. It's very tiring to be so sensory sensitive. And then on top of that, when you're in stressful circumstances, um, you're kind of getting set up for health issues eventually, for a lot of us. And so my first kind of round with chronic illness was shortly after my daughter was born. So this was 13 years ago, and it kind of all snowballed. She was in the NICU. I wasn't getting any sleep. She couldn't nurse. I was having to use a breast pump every 2 hours around the clock for 3 weeks. So, and then she just wasn't a sleeper for probably the first 2 years of her life. And then, kind of at this same time, I had a lot of other stressful circumstances going on, with finances, with what I was realizing was a very difficult marriage, a marriage that I didn't know if it was going to make it. And it kind of, the symptoms kind of came on slowly. And I just thought, well, I'm tired. Of course I'm tired. I'm a mother, you know. But it wasn't until I tried to go back to work as a massage therapist. I got a job in a chiropractor's office, I think when my daughter was about 4. And I was working on people and I felt so weak, like physically, muscularly weak. And it really surprised me. And I just thought, well, I haven't been doing it for a while, so I will gain strength. And I didn't. It got worse, actually. And people would ask for more pressure, and I would be like, oh my God, I literally cannot physically do this, which was kind of a new experience for me, a little scary. And I also had developed a chronic cough, and so that was very difficult, trying to give massages and having coughing fits. And I remember I went to the doctor, and so this is kind of what that I want to talk about today, is a kind of an interesting position where the first time I was dealing with chronic symptoms like this that never was really named, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, things like that. I went the holistic route 100%, after this first initial visit with the doctor. So I had this chronic cough, and I went to the doctor, and she looked at me after, asking questions, doing tests or whatever, and said, oh, you probably have asthma. And I'm thinking, how did I get asthma at 40 years old? Like, all of a sudden, this doesn't make sense to me. So it was kind of like this process of having to come out of denial that I was not well. And so, because of the field I'm in, I feel luckily, right from the very beginning, I was approaching things holistically. And so I was seeing a person who did like nutritional muscle testing, and, had me on all kinds of herbs for parasites and bacteria and viruses, and, was doing things with cleansing and diet. And it probably took me about 4 years. And kind of towards the end of all of that, I really started focusing more on energy work, and had some pretty profound experiences with some things that kind of cleared and realigned in my system. And those jumped me ahead in my healing. So those were really pivotal things. So I'm still, really all for the holistic route with things like this, especially after going through the Western medical system the second time. However, and I think this is the case, whichever route you go, having a chronic illness really challenges you to tune in to your own body and your own knowing and your own intuition, because unfortunately, nobody can tell you what you need to get better, because it's just way too complex and everybody is different. For some people, diet is the key that does it for them, or most of the way. For me, I mean, I always ate pretty good. So nothing I ate or didn't eat seemed to make that much of a difference. I mean, probably, eating healthy is going to be better than not eating healthy. But that wasn't like the big thing that changed it for me. And if you are dealing with chronic illness, I'm sure you've had the experience of everybody has suggestions. Everybody has this great therapy or this great, um, technique or food or supplement or something. And it's a lot. It's a lot to take in. And, I know at times I was just like, oh my God, yeah. Everybody's, knows what I should do. So it really is, I mean, I guess, and you can look at it kind of as a gift in that way, although it's very difficult to do that when you're in it and you're suffering. But it really forces you to look at yourself and your life and your choices and your state of mind and your happiness or unhappiness, and decide what it is that you want and what you're willing to do or not willing to change. So I wish I had, like pat advice for everybody about how to get better from these types of things that often don't end up having a clear diagnosis. And most people I know, because I've had a lot of clients, when they have these symptoms, they start with Western medicine. That's the typical place to start. And it can be very frustrating and often don't get answers. I mean, sometimes you do, but often you don't. And this second time, so both of these periods of chronic illness for me were really preceded by intense, what I call chronic stress trauma. It was just a very, very difficult, nonstop, stressful situation for years, two times. And I might talk about that a little bit more in another video. But so the second time was more recently. That was just the past few years. And I did go Western medical because partly I had good insurance and partly I'm getting older, and I had concerns that didn't occur to me when I was in my 30s of, things like cancer and, just more serious things. So I wanted to have the tests and the scans and make sure that there wasn't something serious kind of building or going on in my system, and, ignore it. So in that way, I'm very thankful for that system. And I think I'll do another video about this too, about when my daughter was born and she was in the NICU, and kind of my process with that being a very holistic kind of mama. So anyway, with Western medicine, the advantages to that I felt like were ruling out things, right? So I can take that off my plate. I can take that off my mind. That's not what it is. So there's a lot of value in that. And honestly, I did take antibiotics, which was another, I think, really helpful thing for me because I did test positive for Lyme disease, and that's a very controversial subject. I know that I might get into at some point, or I might not, but that is what happened for me. And I was on antibiotics for a while, several months at least, maybe close to 6 months. And that was definitely a piece of my healing process and very helpful. Um, so I think what I've kind of learned from these two experiences is, again, it's very individual. My 30-year-old self needed, or my 50-year-old self needed something in my 30-year-old self. The serious problems didn't really cross my mind when I was in my 30s. I kind of look back on that and think, oh my gosh, what was I thinking? Why didn't I go to a doctor? But it really didn't occur to me that it was something more serious. I just felt like, okay, I've been under a lot of stress and I need to do these things to build my system up again. So there's no, across the board opinion I have on this, just kind of the differences in those experiences. I think the thing with Western medicine that, didn't benefit me was, just there's a lot of separateness with the specialties and with the doctors. So I did end up finding somebody, the person who treated me for Lyme, and she was kind of like my navigator, and she would refer me to people. But before I found her, it was like the specialist and the specialist and the specialist and the specialist for this body system, for this body system, for this body system. And there was no holisticness about it. And of course, I wasn't getting really any answers. I'd get like a couple of off things on a blood test. They'd redo it, and then, it was a little bit better. Still out of range, but a little bit better. So, okay, let's just wait and see. It's like I never seemed to get a real definitive answer. And I actually almost ended up getting a double hip replacements because a big problem this time was pain, and especially in my hips. And so I had seen an orthopedic surgeon, and there were things wrong with my hips. There's arthritis and inflammation and torn labrums. So there were things there, but kind of the message I kept getting, even, with my second and third opinion doctors, was, yeah, I mean, if you're in a lot of pain, we'll do it. But, they weren't looking at my scans and saying, oh my God, you need hip replacements right away. It's bone on bone or anything like that. It wasn't. And I'm kind of young for hip replacements, 53. So, if I could wait, they kind of wanted me to wait. And I was pretty close to doing it. And I'm glad I held off because things kind of started to turn around with my health, and things started to get better again. And I'm so grateful for that. It's such a challenging thing, and I feel like this time what really did it for me was I'm in a very supportive environment now. The first time I wasn't. And so for those out there that aren't in a supportive environment, I really feel for you because it's challenging to navigate. But there is hope. There is, and I feel like looking into yourself and your own intuition is probably the most important part, regardless of whether you're looking for a holistic therapy or trying to decide on a medical doctor or procedure. I think that really, based on education, of course, and research and opinions, taking that all in. And so obviously I'm not a doctor. I'm not giving you medical advice, just talking about my experience with it and hoping this will help somebody, because it can be a very tough thing, and it can also be something that brings a lot of, potentially a lot of growth and healing. And I'm also going to talk in another video, I think, about the connection between childhood trauma and chronic illness, because that's very interesting and very important to know and understand. So I think that's all I'm going to say about that today, and see you next time.